least have the thing in the back. You know.
Yeah.
Don't listen. Come on, Kev. You can do it.
Going on, everybody. Welcome to the I Tap That Cigar Show presented by Corona Cigar. I'm your host, Kevin from Cigar Prop, and I am coming to you live from the Drew Estate Experience Acid Studios here on the sunny Gulf Coast of Florida. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars.
Kev, that studio.
It's a milestone, Kerr. We're on episode 201. This is the last episode from this studio. This is our last episode for our summer hiatus. We're going to take at least a month off, hoping it's not going to take any more than that, maybe 6 weeks, but I'm hoping a month, because the more time we take off, the more time we got to keep doing shows into December, and I don't like doing that. I like having my winter break as well.
So the last show in your current lounge.
The last show in the current studio. We'll be moving into the new Drew Estate Experience Acid Lounge and Studio. I know.
Big time.
2 years we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary from we broke ground on that studio, and it shouldn't have taken more than 6 to 8 weeks. And it took 2 years, and we're almost done. So I'm excited. We've been working hard the last week and a half, really, really nailing down, getting some good stuff done. So,
well, that's exciting times, and I'm smoking some good cigars in honor of the studio's last time.
Oh yeah, what are you smoking? Let's get right to the CigarMedics humidimeter cut and light. Remember, with the CigarMedics humidimeter, I don't mine's buried under a mountain of cigar bands. I gotta I've been cleaning
one of these, folks. One of these.
There we go. It's literally. There's probably 40 or 50 cigar bands. Remember, with the CigarMedics humidimeter, you'll always know when to hold them and know when to smoke them. Is my sound okay, Kerr? I got my microphone in a different spot.
It sounds good. I don't want to know where the new spot is, but it sounds great.
So what are you smoking, Kerry?
I'm smoking the Big Tony Robusto Magnifico, the 5x56.
Oh, right on. And I decided to go with the from my boy Pedro Gomez at Drew Estate. The A is what I'll be enjoying tonight. I decided to go Drew Estate. Drew Estate has been with us. We wouldn't have a show without Drew Estate. They approached us. I can't remember. It's been a couple years now. All I know was they were on board. They wanted to do something together. So we started the show at Drew Estate, and then Corona Cigar came on board a couple hours after that. And then it really was. I was at the airport flying home from the Louisiana Barn Smoker when I got a Corona Cigar. Hey, we're on board with you as well. So thank you to Drew, all of our wonderful partners that have been with us the last few years, hopefully going into the next few years as well. And like I said, Drew Estate, Corona Cigar, just been with us, been just fantastic supporters, just not of the show. I am at 57% humidity. Big supporters of it is a little dry. I'm having a problem with that Liga Privada humidor. I moved it out to the new lounge, and I didn't put it in its final spot, which is going to be the new walk-in humidor, and it's sitting underneath that AC, and it's only 37% humidity inside that room. So I went through all of my humidors today, repacking all the Bovedas, and I screwed up. So that's my bad.
You know where a good spot for that is? Humidor.
Where's that?
My place.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it'll be going into the walk-in humidor, which not quite done yet, but yeah.
Just saying.
So yes, thank you to all of our partners, like I said, but Drew Estate and Corona. Obviously, Jessica works for Corona now. They've just been, like I said, just partners of ours. They become friends. They become family, and it's just a great relationship we built.
Tough job of working in a cigar shop.
Yeah.
Oh, the hell of smoking cigars and talking to people about cigars. And Jessica, you are quite the trooper.
That's it. Drinking lattes, eating donuts, and then
I know, right?
That's it. And what are you pairing your cigar with tonight, Kerry?
Water.
Water?
Yeah, I'm doing water tonight.
All right. Well, I'm doing my since this is the lounge that Bacardi built. I am drinking my regular Bacardi and Bacardi and Diet Coke.
So, is Jessica joining us tonight?
She is not joining. Like I say, she just got home. It was a rough day.
God only knows where she is these days, so I have no idea.
Yeah, she's out on the couch, I'm sure, eating dinner and just relaxing. So, yeah, I forgot that was the lead up. I forgot that's our Where is Jessica?
I know. Come on,
intro.
I'm gonna deliver a secret to you.
We need to get those on my buttons over here. So, all right. Any other housekeeping? Any other news?
No, nothing here, man.
We want to dive right into it. So, all right.
Dive right into it. We did the cut and light. You got your cigar, I got my cigar, and
that's it. Even at 57%, man, this A is just banging.
Yeah. 57% ain't bad for me.
No, it's not bad. 56 and below. 57 is usually my limit. Anything below that, I'll usually put it back in the humidor. So hopefully it'll take, a month or so, and the rest of those will come back up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So before we bring on our guest tonight, we want to take a moment to thank all of our show partners for making this happen each and every week. Thank you to JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars, We Are the Muscle, Jake Wyatt Cigars, Illusione Cigars, deep in flavor, deep in your mind, K by Karen Berger Cigars, Corona Cigar, and of course, Drew Estate and Experience Acid.
Love it.
Love it. All right. Waiting patiently in the Experience Acid Green Room is the Director of Content for the Premium Cigar Association and also the host of Deep Cuts Live, Antoine Reid. What's going
guys.
on? How are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. As you noted, I look tired.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from Vegas last week. So I'm adjusting back to this East Coast time zone. So
Kevin
glad to be here.
Early.
Yeah, I had one of our kids at work today, and we get these young kids that just they're not good. They're not smart. Kids aren't smart nowadays. He actually, I don't know what he was doing. He was on his phone, and he walks up to me. I'm on the computer, and then he goes, "Hey, what time zone are we in?" And I go, "What?" I go, "You were born in Florida." I mean, It's not like you came from Alaska and you don't. I don't know. Yeah, what time zone are we in? I go Eastern time zone. I'm like, I should have messed with him and just told him something different, but it was like, I don't have time. I don't have time for this. So you're
people at work, Kevin.
I know. So you're on East Coast like us. Where are you coming from tonight?
So from Durham, North Carolina. So if you know your college towns, is where Duke is.
I know
Kevin at all.
I know Duke. I was waiting for Kerr to chime in. Antoine, I'm not good with maps. I don't know where anything on the planet is. So people are always having to explain to me. Now I know where North Carolina.
Kevin knows that North Carolina is north of South Carolina.
I'm not kidding. Right before I was about to say, I know where North Carolina is because I drive through there to go see Kerr. But then I realized Kerr's in South Carolina, and I would have looked like an ass by saying I would have had to drive through.
So I interrupted you at the right moment.
Yeah, you did, because I was about to blurt that dumb thing out. So speaking of North and South, Antoine, who has the better barbecue, North or South Carolina?
Oh, North Carolina. Like anybody from North Carolina will never acknowledge South Carolina. We don't talk about, like, they don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about South Carolina.
What's Bruno? Like the singer?
It's a Disney thing. It's a Disney thing.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I have, yes. Now I know. Now I know what you're talking about. Kind of like the Dakotas. They're at war with each other too. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah. So Durham. So where is Kerr? Where is Durham? Where would I know? Where's a reference point that I would know of?
It's right in the middle of North Carolina. So it's on the other, I tell people it's on the other side of the airport. So the main airport here in North Carolina is RDU, or Raleigh Durham. And people outside of the state think Raleigh Durham is actual a city, and it's not. It's like the airport lies like right in the middle of Raleigh and Durham. So
I thought it was a city too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most
know.
people think. So it's like, I tell people, it's like usually people fly into RDU and they usually go to Raleigh. But it's like on the other, it's like going in the opposite direction.
So Kevin, if you look at the map of North Carolina and you put your finger on Charlotte,
yeah,
go east halfway, then go north, and you'll bump into it.
Oh well, our son's at Fort Bragg. How far are you away from Fort Bragg? How far is that? Is that like
maybe 2 hours, if that?
Okay, not
that far.
All right, so now I know a little bit about where
Amendola's area is up in there.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for now, trying to convince him to move to Florida. He wants to move to Florida. Yeah, but for a while there, everybody was moving to North Carolina. God, everybody I knew. Now they're coming. I think it's a slow progression. They start off like Amendola and Chris start off in New York. Like North Carolina is like the pit stop. You hang out there for a couple of years, and then you just get that Florida calling.
Chris was right on the cusp. He was in South Carolina, but right across the border from North Carolina. He was in that Lancaster area.
Oh, okay.
In South Carolina, but it's basically a suburb of Charlotte.
All right. Right on. So,
yeah.
All right, Antoine. We'll go through a little bit of your history here.
Okay.
of where you got to where you're at as the director of content for PCA. But have you? Because you were just hired. PCA. Have you had a chance to just sit back and realize, it's only been June 2006. You're art director for the globally acclaimed Carolina Gardener magazine.
Yeah.
Most talked about Gardener magazine in either of the Carolinas. And now it's 2023. You're the director of content for the largest, cigar social club group. I don't, everybody has different names for the PCA, but have you had a chance to sit back? Is it like hit you?
A little bit. I mean, like you said, I started off at Carolina Gardener, and since then it's been nonstop busyness. So I've only had like a brief period of time in between different jobs where it's like, because the moment I for Carolina Gardener, I went to SpecCom International. That was like probably like the biggest gap, which was a couple of months. And then I stayed at SpecCom for, 6 years basically. And a week, no, it wasn't even a week. It was like a couple of days after I left there, I started at Tobacco Business. And then I stayed there another 6 years. And then, 2 weeks after that ended, I was at PCA. So, it's been busy, but I like busy. So it's been no time to kind of sit back and really reflect. It just feels weird to say, I graduated from college in 2006 and now here I am.
Yeah.
All these years later, still working, just in a different part. I say I moved to a different part of my degree. So,
you mentioned tobacco. What happened to Tobacco Business Magazine? Can we not access that online anymore?
I don't think you can.
Okay, because I've tried a couple of times because they always had some good news, and it takes me to like a Cretech or whatever, and I didn't understand what happened, and I tried a couple times, and I don't know.
Yeah. it's a long story, but yeah, I don't think you can access it anymore. Basically, Tobacco Business is a publication of Phillips and King now. So
Phillips and King, that's what it was. Yeah.
So you will have to be a customer of Phillips and King to access the magazine as of January of 2023 going forward. So I don't know what they're going to do with the archives. Basically, all the past stuff. So that's 6 years of stuff that I worked on. You probably can't access it right now.
Okay, yeah, that's what my next question was. What's going to be with the archives? Because there were some great articles, and that you did. Lots of people did over there, and they're all gone. And so I don't know. So
yeah,
but whatever. That's old news. They're losers over there now. No, I'm not. Just yeah. Let's talk. We always like to hear everybody's cigar journey, and I know it gets boring because everybody asks about it all the time. But that's always my favorite, one of my favorite questions, because I like to hear the who or what. There's always who got you into cigars or what got you into cigars, be it a person or just a time in your life. So where did were you gardening, smoking cigars?
No. So for me, I started off at Carolina Gardener. Somebody bought that magazine. My position wasn't really needed because they had someone who could do graphic design. And so for a couple of months, I did freelance stuff until I, decided I wanted to obviously find something else sells full time. And I think I found SpecCom had listed the job on Craigslist, which was, it was before it got shady. So it was like, I was like, why not? Whatever. And they didn't say who they were. It was like a really weird position. It was just like, we're looking for a graphic designer who can deal with magazines. And I was like, oh, I've done that. And I was like, that's right down my alley. So I went into the office, and by that time I had applied for different jobs. I interviewed at different jobs. So I really didn't, I wasn't nervous because I just didn't care at that point. Like when you really interview for 10,000 jobs and you don't get it, or you don't get a call back, you're just like, whatever. So I walked in there and I was totally just zen and whatever. It didn't nothing could faze me. So they were throwing all these questions at me so what happens if you don't have a photo? What would you do? I was like, I guess I'll just create my own photo. I was like, I guess I'll just go out and get it myself or make a photo. They're like, oh, what happens if we need an illustration? I was like, oh, I'll do illustrations. I'll just do it myself. So they kind of like my answers because it was whatever. And I walked out of there and I was like, I don't care. And then they're and at the end of the interview is when they said, we deal with tobacco products. Do you have a problem with that? I was like, do I have to partake in it for tobacco products? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, then no, I don't care. I was like, whatever. So they're like, oh, okay. So by the time I got home from the interview, they had called me back and said, oh, okay, we really liked your interview. Could you come back for, a second round? I was like, yeah, whatever, sure. And I came, and then, that's when they kind of told me more about okay, we have pipe magazines. We have, magazines that focus on cigarettes, magazines that focus on tobacco growing and cigars. And I was like, okay. I was like, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. So it kind of helped because nothing could hold me back when I was like working on the graphic design stuff. I would just like skim the stories, kind of get to know the different companies. Like at the time, it was like I think Tobacconists did like a lot with Davidoff and stuff. So I was like skim the stories and just kind of like pick up on different things and stuff like that. So that was 2010. So I didn't really smoke my first cigar until 2015. After, like, in between that, I had helped found or launch a magazine called Cigars and Leisure. Another one that you can't find anywhere anymore. It's kind of like in the ether. But I helped start that one, and that's when I started writing for the industry. So it wasn't until 2015 when I started to actually smoke cigars. And even when I smoke cigars now, I tell people I'm not a good reviewer. Like some people will say, oh, I have, this cigar has hints of cocoa and has barnyard smell and reminds me of Cocoa Puffs and Fruity Pebbles. And I don't get any of that stuff. To me, it's just like, it's all like cigar stuff. So I can pick up like on general, like what part of the tongue does it stimulate? So is it bitter? Is it salty? Is it stuff like that? But I'm not a good reviewer of cigars. So I never tell people I can like rate a cigar. So even now, all these years later, like when I try a cigar, it's again, I'm just like, I just want to be able to like try it so that when I speak to that person, see that person at a trade show or interact with them on Instagram, I can actually say like, hey, I tried your product. This is what I kind of think of it.
The one thing, and Kerr, I said, we've met so many great cigar manufacturers, so makers, brand owners, factory owners, farm owners. I've tried thousands of cigars. One thing, not one of them have ever asked me is like, hey, what'd you get out of it? They always ask, do you like it?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, but like, yeah. And then I've heard other like cigar influencers, like bloggers, like said they'll ask the same question. And like, yeah, I got notes of Cocoa Puffs. I got notes of this and wood. And I've seen them interrupt like, oh, hey, did you like it? Yeah, I liked it. It's all I needed, man.
Exactly.
It's all I wanted. So people are always saying, you see them on the groups, and at least once a week, someone's like, hey, I'm not getting all of these notes that you all are getting. Is there something wrong with my palate? And I'll be like, no, bro. Most of those guys are lying anyways, So yeah, just the cigar's either good or it's bad.
Do you like it? Would you buy it? Would you buy it again?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Does it got a good story? Now I do get I look for that cocoa. I love cocoa. I love chocolate. If I get that in a cigar, which is always, you'll get chocolate and coffee. Those are the two predominant notes you'll get just about in any cigar. But other than that, Charlie Manata, I don't know, Charlie. Charlie's a good guy, but man, birthday cake, Charlie. Everything else, sometimes you just wonder, wonder about that, But we do have a little clip here from your first endeavor into the cigar world. It's only about a minute, not even a minute long. I think it's like 15 seconds long. So let's play this.
That's a big difference there, Kev.
It is a big. I hovered over it. 30 seconds. So, all right.
I'm Antoine Reid. I'm with Cigars and Leisure, and we're here with Drew Estates, Jonathan Drew. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Antoine. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so Cigars and Leisure is our new magazine to consumers. It's not as serious as a business magazine. So we're going to ask you a few light questions to kind of break the ice and make sure you're kind of on your toes and ready for anything to come in this interview. What's your favorite Drew Estate cigar right now?
Oh, what's my favorite is completely irrelevant, Antoine.
When JD said that, like you see the soul left your body, and you're like, what did I just do?
Yeah, so like a background on that particular interview. So that was like the first like live interview. I had never met Jonathan Drew before. I knew of Drew Estate, but only through like the graphic design sense where somebody like, gives me an ad and say, this is Drew Estate. And we were at the trade show. That was the 2015 New Orleans IPCPR. And I remember I wasn't really nervous for the interview, but I was like, what kind of questions do I ask this guy? And like, and the person who set up the interview was like advertising. So they're like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, just like, do a few shots of, whatever, we'll go over. It's like when the IPSPR used to have like a cigar and spirits lounge, so you could go around and sample. So we went around and sampled like all these different drinks, and then popped me down in front of that interview, and the whole interview, and people, it's on YouTube and it's on like Deep Cuts channel as well. But the whole interview is like that. It's like I would ask JD a question, and he would say, "Oh, I'm not going to answer that question," or "Oh, that's a bad question. I'm going to answer this question instead."
well, I mean, that whole video I pulled that clip from, that particular video was only 25 minutes long, and just let everybody know that's the only question Antoine asked. Like that was it. Because I've been around JD. You just ask JD how his day's going, and then you just leave. You leave the camera running. Like that, JD and Saka are just the same thing. But I love it. You look like a little Debo from Friday with your. I
know. I was that was my plaid stage. I was all lumberjack plaid. Like my whole closet had like plaid this, plaid that. So it was a different time, different era. Where I dressed like Aunt Jackie from Roseanne.
Yeah. But I loved it. Like, I'm gonna see if you're on your toes, JD. And then I'm like. As soon as you said that, because I had never seen that before, I'm like, oh, Antoine's never met JD before. Now I knew it right there when you said that. I'm like, JD's about to go. So. But you want to talk about a fantastic guy? I mean, absolutely, just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
It's funny. I just saw him last week in Vegas for. He did a brief appearance at PCA. So
I saw that. Jessica, as she came into the office, she goes, "Is JD at PCA?" And I go, "No, they're coming, or they're going to be there next year." And she's like, showing me the phone. He's at PCA. I'm like, oh my God. It
was funny. I was on my phone doing my social media stuff, waiting to get into the Hoya booth. And I look up and it's like magic. It was like Santa Claus. It was like, there was JD. And I was like, pausing. I was like, is that JD? I was like, he's not supposed to be here. And then he just walked, we have a conversation really quickly. And then he, like Frosty the Snowman, he kind of disappeared, and I never really saw him again during the show. So now we'll walk around telling people, it's like, JD, like Jonathan Drew was here, and they're like, really? I never saw him. I was like, yeah, he was. I was like, maybe I was the only one. Maybe it's like some magical, moment where I needed a JD moment. He just like magically transimposed himself into the trade show just to talk to me and give me a pep talk.
Call my name and I'll be there.
Yeah, that's it. You got this, Antoine. You got this. And then you're like, did anybody else see that?
Exactly.
See what? That was JD was here. And you lied.
Right.
So that is awesome. So I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're talking about you interviewed JD. You started, you're a host of Deep Cuts Live as well. What made you want to start a cigar podcast, vodcast, cigar show?
I didn't originally. It was like one of those pandemic things where everything was getting shut down, trade shows were getting canceled, and I was watching Michael Herklotz was doing his Instagram live things where he was interviewing different friends from different industries like chefs and wine people and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I'll watch his. And I had two friends, Erica and Amy, who were doing the Lounge Experience podcast. Yeah. They were doing it and they were interviewing people. And like we were talking, they were like, can you come on our show? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. And then at the end, like when, as you know, after a podcast ends, usually there's some good conversation that happens completely off camera. So they were like, oh, you should do it. And I was like, oh no. I was like, that's not my thing. I was like, I interview people, but it's usually, we're on the phone. We don't do filming. I don't know if that would be a good thing for me to do. And they're like, oh, you should try it. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, maybe I'll try it next week. I was like, obviously we're not going anywhere. So I'll try it and see how I like it. And I was like, now who would I want to be the first guest? And I was like, Matt Booth. I think Matt Booth would be a good one. So I text Matt Booth. I was like, can you think you might want to do this live with me on like Instagram? He's like, oh yeah, sure. So, that was like the first one. And then it just continued on. And it's just continued on over the last couple of years. There's some years that's a little bit lighter than others. But then, I'm up to like episode 130. And I'm still pulling in like new people that I've yet to talk to. So it's fun. It's different. I'm getting used to it. People think I don't have any prepared notes. I've tried a couple of shows where I have prepared questions like David Letterman and stuff like that. And I just don't like it. So I usually that's when you see me like pause on the screen. I'm just like thinking of a question, or I stumble over a question because it's like a real conversation where I have no idea where the conversation is going to go. It's just, I kind of hit them with the same question at a certain angle. And then I just like go with the flow of the conversation and see where we're going to end up. And then we always end up in a good place at the end. And I'm like, oh, it worked. It continues to work. So that's always a surprise, and it's fun.
You know, I'm always surprised at the host that can do a show with no notes. Kerr's good on that. Kerr did his own show for years. We got my buddy Ryan Miller, Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. He doesn't do notes. I've got 8 pages of here. I got eight pages, and I've got probably 7 hours into prep for this show. I'm just, but it's all the questions I want to know about the guests. You know, all the because a lot of the guests that we have on, like I've been watching you for a while. I've been following these makers forever, so I've always kept like these mental notes. So I always take deep questions. We got Luke Brutal here. Antoine has a PS5 in the back. Are you a gamer?
Yeah, the PS5. Yes, yeah.
So
there's a PS5 there, and then there's a Nintendo Switch over there. So it's funny because like the PS5, like I got it right at the beginning, right when it came out, and that was like this big thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got a PS5, and then I play the Switch all the time, and the PS5 is like one of those things where I boot it up. And every time it seems like I boot it up, it has to go through an update. And by the time I wait for the update, I'm going to go back and play Zelda. I was like, it doesn't need any updates and stuff like that. It's just like too much. Or the controller, the battery goes out so quickly that like I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima and getting my butt beat in it. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, the controller's getting ready to go dead. I'm like, what in the world? So I'm always on the Switch, and the PS5 is fun. But yeah, so I'm I'm probably more into the Switch than, like I said, than I am the PS5. But I think I was playing Arkham Knights or something like that on the PS5 recently.
Yeah, Luke Brutal, he's got a gaming channel. Everybody check it out. You know, he's actually a buddy of mine. He's not very good, but he makes it fun. Sometimes plays with his daughter, you know, which is a cool thing. But yeah, check him out. Give him a sub. He needs it. Luke Brutal. Manny, and we're gonna get back to the show here in a question. Manny's on with us. Oak Island. Do you ever watch the TV show Oak Island
or Skinwalker Ranch?
No.
All right, Manny. Manny's just he's Manny's waiting for the day to where I ask that question and the entire show goes astray, and we just get into this conspiracy theory of aliens and Knights of the Templar, and sorry, Manny.
No, the closest I get to aliens is Star Trek. So I've just, because Paramount Plus was starting to cancel different Star Trek shows, I have a stack of different DVDs here that I just bought like on physical media, Blu-rays, I should say, not DVDs. It's a little bit more up to date, but Star Trek is as close as I get to aliens. Star Trek and Alf.
Kevin, you ever notice that the last several guests, when you ask that question, they have the same look in their face that if I was to ask you where Lincoln, Nebraska is?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what is that? You know, Oak Island. Yeah.
Oak Island.
Yeah. Conspiracy show, digging a hole, not finding anything. Erica and Amy, they got you into doing the show, and I love those girls. I mean, women. Jessica always yells at me. They're not girls. You know, whenever I call a grown-ass woman a girl. But I love them. They are absolutely my favorite. Some of my favorite people. So when they convinced you, did you just go buy off their show, or did you go and watch other shows? Did you go and watch Coop or Dojo and figure out, like what the timing of, or are you just like, hell
no? I based it more on like TV shows, and because I get to work from home, and so like as I'm working, there's always something on in the background. So I kind of take different parts of TV shows or daytime talk shows and stuff like that I like, and that's kind of what I kind of put into place at Deep Cuts. So people be like, I tell people lots of my questions might be inspired by actual me watching Rachel Ray.
Yeah.
Because after she does her cooking, when she, I know her show just ended too, so I'm pretty sad about that. But she she has like interviews that she does with different guests, and she will always ask like really good questions because, you know, especially during the pandemic when she didn't have, you know, writers there to feed her every single question, she would kind of go off the cuff and she would really find a good angle to, like, you know, make people feel at home and make people feel at ease about that kind of stuff. And my other inspiration is usually either Oprah questions, because I used to watch Super Soul Sunday, or Barbara Walters questions. So like when Barbara Walters passed away and they were showing all her different interviews over the past, you know, couple decades, I picked up a lot because they replayed part of her retirement video where she was at ABC and she was telling you how she approached. And she said, "Oh, I always ask the question about the father." She said, because people have a really interesting relationship with their father. So I always, like, now in the fourth season of Deep Cuts, I integrate that question in somehow, like, oh, like, what was your relationship like with your father? You know, and some people are like, oh, it was like really good. And some people go, it's really bad, you know, and then you get a really good, to me, that forms the foundation of the whole interview from there. Because, like, well, what did you learn from that? Or what did you try to avoid, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's one question. What I said, we'll ask a lot of the second generation, you know, cigar brand owners, you know, like Alec and Bradley Rubin, you know, just the kids. It's like what was your father? I mean, was he always, you know, was he beating you, making you work out in the fields, you know, just start picking tobacco, you know, like Christian Aroa, you know, having fun on his little 4-wheelers, you know, but I do love Rachel Ray. And now I have, like I said, I've been kind of leaning towards Pioneer Woman, but I am on my second set of Rachel Ray cookware in like 10 years. So I love Rachel Ray. She's my girl. She taught me a whole lot. So, but yeah. Where are we at now? See, now that was the yeah. I'm like, what are we on? Like Rachel Ray. We're talking about Oprah here. All right. So, who's been your favorite? You know, and I know you can't say that, but who's been your favorite?
Interview wise, the one that always stands out to me is Ernesto Perez Carrillo. I think that was, as I call it, season 1. So that was the pandemic year. Because I remember, you know, I'm just doing these interviews. Like, I don't have any, like, you know, real plan for them. Like, they just kind of end up, and I usually reach out to people and they say, hey, do you want to be on? So I would never think of reaching out to Ernesto Perez Carrillo, like, hey, do you want to, like, do an Instagram live with me? It would never come to my mind that he would have the time or interest to do that. And I remember just, you know, after I signed off of one, you know, I'm going back to my day going, you're like, oh, that was cool. And then I get like direct messages from EP Carrillo, and they're like, hey, would you be willing to would you be willing to have Ernesto or Lisette on your show? And I was like, either. I was like, sure. So I was like, Ernesto's not gonna have time to do this. I mean, he's busy. Even during the pandemic, he was busy. I was like, there's no way. I was like all prepared because I had written stories about Lisette. So I was like, oh, I know I'm prepared. I know some questions to ask. And then they're like, okay, like, we'll let you know which one is going to do it. And I was like, cool. I was like, that'll be awesome. And I was like, and then they were like, came back to me and said, Ernesto's going to do it. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, cool. I was like, okay. I was like, I think I'm ready. So there Ernesto was in his living room, and here I am in mine. And we were just talking, and people were coming on to the Instagram live asking questions of Ernesto, and it was great because it was like, I was like, oh, Ernesto, like, this person has a question for you. And he would like take the time, like a good minute, and just really dive into the questions and really give thoughtful answers and stuff like that. So that interview for me stood out in my mind. Another one's like Rafael Nadal, because that was, again, first year, the pandemic year. And I remember Altidus reaching out saying, oh, would you be interested in Rafael, like doing an interview with Rafael? And I was like, yeah. I was like, if he wants to do it. And like, yeah, like we'll set it up. And like, he was at home, and I remember at the end of the interview, it was like the late show kind of thing, because we did this whole interview, and he was like, I'm gonna play something on the piano for you. And I was like, go for it. What? So he's sitting there with a cigar in his mouth, and he's just like playing the piano. It was like one of those like odd things that will only happen during the pandemic. And I was so happy that I was able to like save that video. So it's like buried in the Deep Cuts thing YouTube channel. But if you go to the very end of the interview, he's sitting there playing the piano. And since it's Instagram Live and you can't like take yourself off, I'm just sitting there like nodding, like I don't know what to do during that time. I'm just like Wow, yeah. So it's interviews like that are always fun. So there's so many other people though, but those two kind of stand out from basically that first year of doing deep cuts.
Yeah, we've never had Ernesto on. There's like Ernesto, Rafael, and Carlito. I just feel like I'm not ready. Like I've been doing this for a couple of years. I've interviewed everybody. People are like, hey, why don't you have Carlito on? I'm like, and Carlito's like a friend of mine. I'm like, I'm not ready for Carlito. I'm not ready for Rafi. I'm not ready. I spoke to Ernesto at the Great the Great Smoke, and I'm like, hey, I just want to introduce myself. I go, I do some media stuff, and I go, I just want to let you know, like 99% of every guest we've ever had on credits you somehow for something. It's always, oh, I was in a hard time and Ernesto got me some tobacco, or Ernesto got me this, or Ernesto got me that. And it's just like, he's helped everybody.
He has.
It's crazy. Everybody has an Ernesto story. So one day we'll get him on. I'll be ready.
Kev.
I am, but I scrolled through your channel because I wanted to see how you handled Saka. I haven't seen that you interviewed Saka yet.
I haven't, that's one of those people that I haven't gotten through to yet. Like there isn't I feel like a list of people that maybe I need to do a couple more interviews until I can broach it. But I did send him, I think, an email 1 or 2 times that I didn't get a response to yet. So he's on my radar of people that I would love to have on deep cuts at some point, but I just haven't reached him yet. So yeah, I was going to ask if he's your white whale, but he's white and he's huge. So I didn't want to really say that, but now that I said it, Steve's I see he's a friend of mine, so who cares? But we've had him on the show a couple times. If you ask the same questions that every other show asked, he will tell you that's a dumb question. So he's always looking for the new. It's like when someone asks, he gets excited and he goes, oh my God, nobody's ever asked me that question before. So he gets excited on the show. But yeah, he's another one. You just say like, hey, what's going on, Steve? And then just shut up for the next, hour.
Work the tickers.
Yeah, just work the tickers. Steve's gonna do the rest of your show for you. So when you're doing an interview or you're being interviewed like tonight, I notice you never smoke a cigar.
Yeah, because I'm in my apartment here.
Okay.
In the American Tobacco District of Durham, North Carolina, which is the most anti-tobacco part of North Carolina. It's not so. So I usually don't. Plus, I think for me, it's like usually when I'm doing an interview, I honestly easily get distracted. So I really have to focus because sometimes if I'm thinking about 10,000 other things that I have to do like the next day, I have to stop myself from thinking about that during the interview. So if I'm doing too many different things or this isn't lighting right or whatever, I would be the interview will be derailed very quickly.
Yeah, especially if you're having to relight your cigar or something, Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can get distracting. And then especially if you don't have a cigar, because we've had guests on where we couldn't get the cigar. So we're smoking and we're not smoking their cigar. And it's just like, a little awkward. They'll be like, hey, have you ever had my cigar? Nope. Never had it. So it's like, so we've had some guests send us cigars after the fact. I'm like, hey, I appreciate that. So, but yeah, it's I didn't know you were in an apartment and the American Tobacco District, and they say, and it's the most anti-tobacco area.
Yep. No
Isn't
smoking
that
on.
crazy about North Carolina? How that's a tobacco state, or was it now just restricted now?
Yep. Like all there are lots of luxury apartments that used to be tobacco factories and schools and that have been turned into luxury apartments, have been turned into schools, have been turned into medical research facilities. And like I said, it's like the most anti-tobacco states that you can possibly think of. Like you can't smoke on the sidewalks. You can't smoke within 200 feet of, public, state-owned buildings, all this other stuff.
Really? So even outdoor in the public?
Oh yeah, it's like no parks, nothing of that sort. So it's really like you have to kind of. So when I post like a cigar picture on Instagram, it's usually on the weekends when I'm at my mom's house. So I've taken like half of my cigar collection is like at her house right now because I'm just like so. I'm just like, this is the only place I'll ever be able to do anything like that. So I have half the collection here and then half at her house. And I'm thinking like at some point, all of it will slowly just be at her house and it'll become like its own humidor.
That's awesome.
You know, they don't let you smoke in some of the lounges there. I know they had the grandfather rule. I can't remember where it was, but I stopped in a cigar shop and it was one of the strip malls and it was all nice and beautiful. And I went in, I bought some cigars and I start lighting up. The guy's like, stop. I'm like, what? He goes, you can't light up. You can't smoke here. We're in a strip mall. And he started explaining to me all the rules and regulations and the different laws in North Carolina and the shops you can smoke in that are, they're standalone buildings, they're grandfathered. And I was like, Jesus, this is a tobacco state.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, do they still grow tobacco, like any tobacco? Is that still a thing in North Carolina?
Yeah. There's still tobacco farms here. Okay,
mainly for all cigarette tobacco, I'm assuming, because I don't hear anybody using North Carolina or
it's mostly all for like you said, cigarettes.
So speaking of cigars and like I said, just smoking, you're one of the few personalities that I noticed. Like Bear Duplessis, Coop, Aaron Loomis. Really only three that I can really think of, and you. Like you're not like a fanboy, like you're always promote like me. Everybody knows I smoke Drew Estate and I smoke Dunbar. I smoke everything, but I'm a Drew Estate fanboy. I'm a Dunbarton fanboy. Mm-hmm. That's not, is that something that you've kind of done on purpose to not pigeonhole yourself, or you just haven't found that one brand that you want to smoke all the time?
No, I try to, especially since, I'm a little bit of my degree's in journalism and I do work with a lot of companies. I don't want people to think that obviously like I'm just like all this brand or all that brand. But it's funny because like when I'm at the trade shows, like I have like a lot of Room 101 t-shirts and stuff. So you will see me walk around there with a Room 101 t-shirt. And like when I was at the show this year, I had my Camacho hat. And, I was just because I like it. And it's like, it's when I got for Camp Camacho. So I was like wearing that. So I'm always wearing something like usually cigar related. I have a whole bunch of crown heads, hats that I wear, every day. So it's like, I guess I don't take pictures of it. So people don't think I'm fanboying out. But there are certain brands that I really do enjoy and like. And it's usually because I know the people behind it and get along with them really well and kind of know their story a little bit more than other people.
Oh yeah, I'm same here. Got tons of hats, t-shirts, crown head hats, everything else. When I went to the trade show last year, I made sure I was neutral, and
exactly.
because I was taking pictures and most of it, because I was only there for one day last year. I didn't get a chance, so I was there to just visit my friends. Mm-hmm. Saka, Matt Booth, Terrence Riley, and they didn't care. They wouldn't have cared if I took a picture with a Drew Estate hat or whatever. But there are certain brand owners that'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's going on there?" Remember the media trying to do an interview and you're wearing a big Drew Estate jersey and they're not even here. I'm like, oh well, So, but yeah, I see what you mean. But you're, let's say you're trapped on a deserted island.
Okay.
You only bring it's that age old question. What cigar do you bring?
You know what? It's going to be the new one by Crown Heads, the one that they just released or just announced with Ernesto Perez Carrillo.
Oh, have you tried it?
I did. I tried it this weekend. I know that people say you're supposed to let your cigars rest after Vegas and all that stuff, but I was like, I'm just going to light it up. I don't care. But I felt like it was like a very traditional, like instant classic almost. That's the note. I usually like will smoke a cigar and I'll write a note in my Apple Notes about the cigar, like a few impressions. And what I wrote with there, I was like, oh, instant classic. It's like, clean on the palate, good burn line. It just, it was just straightforward what you would expect from a premium cigar. And it was like nice. It was just a good all around experience. So to me, that's just like a classic cigar. Like, what to expect from that cigar. So La Verita, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it was. They talked about it in one of their latest podcasts, and I think that's like something like that. But yeah, I've heard a few people say that it's really good, but I
Mhm.
haven't. If you're going to write about it, just remember Instant Classic is the name of a Caldwell cigar.
I know.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I had to like put that in quotation marks because I know how the industry feels about trademarks these days. So
Oh my, it's brutal. It is.
I would just say it's a classic, not an instant classic.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah, a quick classic, whatever it is that you want to. So different question, because as I was typing these notes, and a question I've never asked before. So no cigars, but you're trapped on a deserted island with one brand owner. Who do you bring with you?
One brand owner. See, that one's going to require some thought. Because at first I go with Matt Booth, just because I feel like I would be at least entertained. But then it depends on how long we're going to be stranded on this island.
See,
I feel like and not to be insulting, but because I feel like Matt would keep things fun. But I think the longer we're stranded on the island, the more worried I would be that we would not be rescued. And I don't think I would be very entertained at all by anything. So I think I'll start getting like, okay,
sleep with one eye open.
like let's not joke now. Let's find a way to get off this island.
yeah, Matt, I'm literally dying of dehydration. Can you please stop talking about your butthole? I need water, Matt. But as I'm typing this, my notes were the exact same as yours. So for mine, short term, Jeremy McDonald of Wildfires, because I would be entertained. Long term, Robert Holt, baby, spent a career in the military, living in jungles. Robert Holt's making sure I'm leaving that island fat and not thirsty.
That's a good point.
That's it. Kerr, what about you?
No, I agree with Robert Holt. I mean, I do get the Matt Booth first pops into your mind, and then, as you said, Antoine, after time goes by, you're like, this is going to be highly entertaining, but I think I'm going to become Matt Booth's wife, and we're gonna start raising a family here on this island.
I mean, he was a Marine, but that was a long time ago, and it was for a short time. I don't know. He's been to LA too. He's bougie now. I don't think he does well. On a deserted island, like I said. But yeah, Robert Holt. He's taking care of all of us. So you mentioned that you started your cigar show during COVID, and that was, I mean, you probably noticed it, like dozens and dozens of cigar shows. Like everybody was having a cigar show. Everybody was a cigar reviewer. It was a great time, actually. All the virtual herfs. You worked from home, so I mean, you knew whether it was 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. or 1 a.m. You just hop in one of these rooms and virtual herfs going on. A lot of those shows, like the majority, have all fizzled out. Like they're not around anymore. People went back to work, and a few of them are still around, and a few of them are doing really good. I still get questions all the time. People reaching out to me about starting a show or starting an Instagram. They want to start reviewing cigars. Do you get that as well from being, as a media member?
I don't get it as much these days. I do talk, like last week, I got to meet a couple people in the media, and it came up just how do you set yourself apart from everyone else when everyone else, like the standard, like you said, is to kind of do reviews or now a podcast of some sort. And, my advice to those people is always to find what makes you different. Like there's already this person in the industry. There's already that person. There's already this blog, this podcast. You have to find out like what's going to make you different. And I think a lot of people sometimes get into, especially around PCA time, you walk around the show floor and you run into lots of influencers or lots of people who really want, to get the pictures with the cigar celebrities and such like that. But it's like, what are they adding to the conversation? I just think it does take a lot of work to kind of do what you do and what I do and what several of the other people who have managed to be around in the industry for a long period of time, it's a lot of work. And I don't think people realize how much work it takes to kind of be a media person, a real media person. And not, like I said, it's not just about the cigar reviews and stuff, because it's really easy to burn out. And once you fizzle out, it's really hard to kind of get back into the groove and get back out there.
Yeah. There have been a few good friends of mine that have just got, burned out, like you said, and like Vic High Desert Man, he had a great channel, but it was just it was just not fun for him anymore, and just not fun for other people, and they got out, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of people that not early on, maybe last year, I would get these comments, because I was off work for 9 months, hurt my knee. I was on crutches, and people would make the comment, "Oh, it must be nice to sit around, smoke free cigars all day." And my comment would be like, "Try it. Mm-hmm. You think it's fun? I mean, smoke, sitting around, having to write articles or do videos or, your blog or whatever, for sitting in front of a computer for 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. It's not fun after a while, no. It gets tedious. So, but I do tell people the same thing. Like, what do you want to bring to the table? People are like, well, I want to be like Coop, or I want to be like Dojo. Well, we already have that.
I tell people the same thing. I'll tell people, I was like, there's already a half wheel. There's already a cigar coupe. So what are you going to bring to the table? Like, what's going to make you be you? So that's like what with my podcast, like we don't get into like wrapper binder filler kind of talk, because I feel like everyone else does a much better job of doing that. But we might get into like the deeper, like, well, why did you get into the industry? Like, why are you still, people always say they don't never make money from cigars. So what's your motivation? Like what's keeping you here? And that's like, it gets into a much deeper, deep cuts, deeper conversations about stuff like that, because it's like, oh, it's like we get to the end and they realize it's like, oh, we didn't hardly talk about the cigar stuff. It's not the usual questions. I was like, yeah, because you're going to go on, all these other podcasts in the future and talk about that. It's like, let's talk about something completely different. So,
I agree. I mean, we've done so many shows where we've been an hour and a half deep, and we haven't talked about cigars yet. Or I mean, other than we want to know their history, the story, how they grew up, where they grew up, what they did. We want to hear, a little about what made them the person they are today. When I did the interview with Nick Melillo, we were 2 hours until I asked about his new cigar, because cigars are boring, to me. I mean, like I said, it's wrapper, binder, filler. Yes, there is an infinite number of ways that you can blend those to create new cigars, and they're great cigars. But like you said, they're going to talk about that tomorrow. They're going to talk about that next week. There's no reason to get into that, here. It's just fun. Those are my favorite shows. I don't know if you're like that. Kerr and I, we'll be talking, and then next thing we know, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And like, I don't remember a word of what we talked about. Like, it's like, I'll have to go back sometimes. Like, what did we even talk about? Like, it's just, how did we get here? And it's just, those are my favorite shows. Those are the ones I come out of the room at night, and Jessica's like, how was the show? If she's not on, I'm like, it was fantastic. I love it. So
yeah, I love those shows where you kind of run out of time and you're like, ooh, like, like my show only goes an hour, because I'm like, I have stuff to do, and I know that they have stuff to do, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, like it's over already. I'm like, yeah. It's like, but you can come back, a couple months from now, we'll have a completely different conversation, I'm sure. So there are just people now that I'm starting to have back on to the show that I had on during the pandemic. So I feel like that's enough time now where we'll have a completely different conversation. And again, it probably won't be just about the cigar stuff. It'll be, how life has changed in the last 2 years, since everything kind of was upended by the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool to have those conversations where I think my goal usually is to run out of time and have them say like, that's it. And I'm like, yep, that's it.
That's
like,
it.
We're not going over. We're going to cut it. We're going to cut it off like right here.
That's it. That's what I want to do starting going into 2024. I want to start off going back. There are people that's been a year since I've interviewed, And like I said, in a year is a long time, especially in the cigar industry, not just for cigars, just everything that's happened in their lives. And I want to do the same thing, is go back and start revisiting some of these, these older, older shows, and be like, hey, I remember, we did that. I think I did a show with Fred Rui, and it'd been a year. And I'm like, hey, I asked you 2 questions a year ago when I had you on the show. And I go, let's revisit those 2 questions. So those are always.
A lot can happen in a year.
Yeah.
That's it. You're definitely right. A lot could happen in a year, and you could revisit, and the landscape could be completely different.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So let's get on to your new role, the director of content for the PCA. Like, how did that? Had you left your previous job, or did PCA steal you from your previous job?
So PCA didn't technically steal me, because I actually did. I don't know what generation they would consider me. I was born in '84, but I did that thing where, I think on the news for like the past year, you've heard all the stories about people dissatisfied with their jobs, so they just like quit or they leave, or it's like the year to resignation or whatever.
Oh, you're silently quitting?
Yeah, and but it's like I wasn't silent about it. I was just kind of like sitting around, and things were changing, and I just didn't feel like I could contribute much to the conversation and much to this, all the changes that they wanted with tobacco business. And I was like, so do I stay here and just collect the paycheck, or do I just like move on to something else? And I was like torn, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And I reached out to Matt Booth, and I was like, give me some advice. and he gave me his advice, and it was good advice. And at the end, he was like, but one thing I'm going to tell you, don't quit. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to Michael Herklots, and the same thing. And I was like, Michael, this is everything that's going on. This is where I am. And he was like, he gave me advice and stuff. And he said, but one thing, don't quit. And I was like, okay. And then it was like things progressively for me got worse. And then I was like, I'm going to quit. and so it was like over a weekend, I had just come to that conclusion. I was like, I have enough in savings to make this work. I don't care how long I'm going to be out. And I remember handing in the notice, and I wrote it. It didn't take me long to write. And I was just like, yeah, I'm just going to move on and whatever. And it was a Monday, and it was like right before TPE this year. So TPE 2023. Oh. And and it was like all this list of stuff that they wanted me to do. And I was like, you're going to do this at the show, you're going to do that. And I was like, okay. And then I was just like, I'm going to quit. And I was like, I just got into my mindset that I was going to do it. And then you keep talking yourself out of it. Like, well, what about health insurance? Or what about this? And I was like, no, I'm going to just do it. I was like, I'm going to really do it. And I remember handing in my resignation, and they, I was like, just let me know what you want me to do with TPE. I was like, if you want me to come and do video and photo, I'll be professional about it. I won't say anything about me leaving or whatever. And they're like, no, that's okay. Like, you can be done by the end of this week. So I was like, cool. Like, great. And, my biggest thing too was that Camp Camacho was coming up. So I was like, I reached out to Davidoff, and I was like, look, I want to be upfront with you. I'm not going to be with tobacco business anymore. Are you okay with that? Like, if you don't want me to come to Camp Camacho, that's completely understandable. I just want to let you know, like, I'm not going to be there. And they're like, come anyway. So I was like, okay. So I was like, so I left. I went to Camp Camacho, and about I think 2 weeks later, I started with PCA. So PCA needed a content person, and me and Scott Pierce had several conversations on what content looked like, what they needed, what I could do, and everything kind of just lined up. And I was like, to be a media person in this industry, and to go to the stage of doing media for like on the PCA stage was like a big challenge. I was like, it's very intriguing. I was like, to work with, because I wanted to work with everyone. I didn't want to work for just writing content for like one specific company.
Yeah,
I thought that would be pretty boring pretty quickly. So to find a position where I could continue to write and work with everyone in the industry in some big capacity really was appealing. So it all worked out, man. I started on March 21st, So I've made it past that 3-month mark, and I'm still here. And so
We're
good.
Yeah, we're gonna back up for a second and
Okay.
and touch on a couple points. Michael Herklot. So it was probably like a year and a half ago. I was kind of like in a funk. I didn't know where I wanted to go with all of this, and I didn't know Michael Herklot's then. Like we like interacted online a couple of times, and I reached out to him. And man, you want to talk about just a guy that just has a ton of advice. Like he just took the time and had a great conversation, and just a super, super good dude. So I'm always going to be grateful to Michael Herklotz. Camp Camacho. What is Camp Camacho? I don't know anybody that's gone. So I keep seeing the thing for it, but I don't know what Camp Camacho is.
So basically it's, if you know Drew Estate's Cigar Safari that they used to do, it's basically Davidoff's version of that for Camacho. So you go to Honduras. Camp Camacho is like, a little compound right next to the Camacho factory. So you stay in the little compound, so basically when you're there, it's like, a good time, food, drink, whatever, accommodations. And then you spend a day kind of exploring the factory. You spend a day at the in the Camacho tobacco fields. So it's a little bit of like everything. So it's just a way for you to experience, like I said, Camacho on the factory level, and then in the actual tobacco fields.
Okay, so that's cool. Yeah, definitely sounds like something I want. I'll have to reach out to Jack Heyer. Jack's the new guy over there. Like Jack, got to get me in Camp Camacho. I haven't seen Jack. Jack's been, he's been so busy. Was he at PCA? Did you see him?
I did not. I don't think Camacho was there this year.
Yeah, I knew. I don't. They definitely weren't there. I didn't know if he was there. Kind of like some of the Drew Estate guys, just kind of scoping things out. And
I didn't see him. So if he did, he came in like stealthy ninja style.
Yeah. I didn't see a single picture. So what is your role entail as director of content? Like what do you what does that mean?
So I do a little bit of everything, which is kind of like what I've done in other positions. Like I do a little bit. So I write some content for the magazine. So PCA has its own magazine. So I usually take care of right now, like a lot of the manufacturer type stories. So like last issue, I wrote a story about Berger's new Nicaraguan factory that I got to see back in January. And I did the cover story on Eric Espinosa. So I write content like that. We have our own industry news page now. So press releases, anything that's announced, PCA now. I think before it had like an RSS feed that they were kind of feeding in news feeds from different blogs and stuff like that. And I was like, why don't we write our own, why don't we just take care of that ourselves and do our own, thing on it? Because especially leading up the last, I came in basically right as it was leading up to PCA. So I was like, you're getting to get hit with a whole bunch of press releases about PCA. And I think that we should craft that so that people know, like, this is PCA and we're going to take care of our own press releases in that, way. So writing industry news like that. And also it's lots of communication. So it's hopefully improving some of the communication. So I work with Scott and other people on the team to get messages out there, whether it's about the trade show, legislation stuff, just industry news, any of that kind of stuff usually passes through my computer here at some point. And I just put my little spin on it to hopefully make it a little bit easier to understand and make sure the right people get the message. Yeah,
because they weren't known for having the best press releases. When I would get a press release, I'm like, wow, that's kind of a big company. That's kind of a crappy press release. It's which I have told other manufacturers that have had press releases. I'm like, hey, do me a favor, subscribe to other people's press releases and see how like a real press release is done. Because like I said, there are a lot. I mean, you've seen them.
When you get like we're going to release a new cigar wrapper binder filler it's out on August 4th. And then they're like, why didn't you post it? I was like, there's nothing to post. There's not enough to post. There's no picture. There's no anything. So it's like, what? Like, so yeah. So yeah.
Or the last one I got, I didn't post that. There was a picture and it was a blurry photo of like someone's. I'm like, you want me to post that? I'm like, I don't have time to fix this image for you. Like to go in there and like Photoshop it out or send it to Kerr to have him Photoshop it out for me. I'm like, I'm just not going to post it. I'm like, this is a horrible photo. Steve Saka made a comment online this year on his own personal Facebook page, said best PCA in a decade. And of course it's the one I miss. Yeah. Now you've been going to PCA since what you said, 2015?
Yes. So I missed like one or 2 years in between in that mix, but yeah, pretty regularly.
Would you agree? Was this the best one in a decade?
I think it'll be hard for me to answer that since I'm like on the PCA side now. So for me, it was definitely, I would say from a media perspective, it was definitely good in that I was able to go to people's booths, do the videos that I usually would do as a media person, and and I was able to kind of get the vibe of like, is this going well for you? Like after the video, I would say, good show. Like, do you have any problems? Nobody said like, oh, we have a huge problem or I need to talk to you. Like you'll get that talk like, see me after the show today or meet me at the circle bar or whatever. And we have a few things to talk about or something like that. It was none of that this year. It was overall a good vibe. You had like a few. I think the biggest criticism that I heard was the opening party with the single file line. It was just so many people in this line. It was the one area that I think most people can agree on that needed improvement.
That's the way it was last year too. That single file, that you get into that line, you're like, why did I get here like an hour early? Because it takes an hour. You're watching all these people have fun, and here you are in line.
Because even I got there and I looked at the line and I was like, that's okay. I was like, I don't need to stand in line for whatever that is, and I just immersed myself in the rest of the party. And so I think that was like the biggest criticism that I heard during the show and afterwards was like, what was going on with that line? So that's already kind of on the docket to improve upon for next year.
So and in your content, I mean, we watched almost all of it. It was fantastic. Jessica, every time you posted something new, Jessica would come in the office, or if I saw it, I'm like, oh, hey, did you see the video? And we've never done that in the past. Like the content was just, it was off the chain this year. We absolutely loved it. Everything you did. The interviews were short, sweet, to the point. I understood that manufacturer, what he was doing, who he was with in 60 seconds, and then we moved on to the next one.
Well, that's what I was telling people, because people are like, well, are you going to sit down and ask me questions? I was like, no, I'm not. I want you to look at the camera. I want you to say your name, your company name, and then answer the question, what's new? That's all you have to do. And they're like, how long does this need to be? Like a minute? I was like, it can like aim for under a minute, and then like we'll see what happens. If you need to go over that, cool. I was like, but under a minute will be like awesome. And that's what I think, we talked about content, what we wanted to do content wise going into the show a lot, like for the last couple of months. And I was like, what are we going to do? Like, what's the content strategy going to be? And I was like, for me as a media person, I was like, that's the only content that I know people really want to see, because you don't get around to everyone's booth. You don't get to see everyone. You don't get to hear from everyone. And what was fun was doing those videos. They didn't require much editing. It was just like, maybe the front part I took off a little bit where it's like a little, pause, or there's one or two videos that we kind of had to start over, but it was pretty straightforward. Now I would leave the show, and since I was East Coast time, I would wake up at like 4 something in the morning, and I was just like sitting there, like post it to the point where Instagram was like, we think this is spam, or you're trying to hack the account, so we're going to limit you for now. And then I'll be like, oh, I guess it's time for me to get dressed for today then and get ready to go downstairs. But it was, but I think people really seem to respond to it. So we had a staff meeting today, and I brought that up, and I said, obviously, we need to do more of that kind of coverage in future shows. So maybe, get another content person, at least for the show, to go around so that they can maybe cover half the show, because you can never get around to everyone. And that's just it. Like I was telling you all before the show began, it's like, you feel like I did, I think when I counted, it was like over 60 videos this year, which sounds like a lot, but when you have like 200 exhibitors, I could have done a lot, if I could have multiplied myself, there could have been a lot more videos, but we haven't mastered that skill yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had like an assistant or something, because you were cranking them out, but
we had Rob from Bovado actually working with us this year. I know he's no longer with Bovada, so it was Rob formerly from Bovada working with us this year to do sit down interviews with some retailers. So those videos haven't even come out yet.
Okay,
so,
yeah, I haven't seen it, because you're lucky you got the job, because Rob would have taken that job if you hadn't gotten that.
So we had him working on videos. We had 2 photographers. We had another person just doing video clips from different things, so we can do some B-roll stuff in the future and to promote the next show that's coming up. So it was just a lot. But for me, it was like, it was like 12 o'clock on Saturday when the trade show floor opens, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go around and just do these video things. And it seemed to work out, and we got a pretty good response from people saying that they really like that kind of coverage. So I was like, well, that's easy to do. It's just time consuming. You're spending your whole day just tracking it. And like I said, if they were busy or talking and sitting down with meetings, I was just like, I have to keep moving to get as many videos in as possible. There's only a couple booths where I kind of like stood around and kind of waited, because I knew if I left, I would never get another one. Like, Pete Johnson was always busy. He was like the last interview I did, and he was like, "Why didn't you come earlier?" I was like, "I tried, but you were busy." I was like, I can't interrupt business. So I was like, you're the last interview I'm doing for this show. So
yeah, I didn't get a chance to interview him last year, and he one of the people that reached out afterwards, like, "Hey, why didn't you?" Because so my interviews where I had like a pod deck, so it was a deck of cards with random questions, none of them about cigars at all. So every interview was 20 seconds, and I would fan them out, pick a card. They'd read it, answer it, and then I'd move, and they'd be like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah, bro, that's it." Some people were like, "You want to talk about the cigar?" No. Coop's over there. You can talk to Coop about the cigar. I don't care. So I had a blast. Everybody loved it because they were short, quick, 30-second, like what you did in a minute, other people would do in 10 minutes, just talk about, get around to the point of what's the new cigar.
So I was going to ask Antoine, with trying to keep everybody under a minute, who went over a minute?
There were several people. There were several. I can't even name some of the companies, but it was fine. I told them, I was like, you can go over a minute. I'm just telling you, like, that's the goal. It's like, this is like a quick, it's not an interview. It's just you. It's like a commercial spot. Like, This is Super Bowl. You're getting your 30 seconds, and we're going to post you on like our platform. Go.
Yeah. I'm wondering, you say to stick to a minute. It all started back in 1970.
Yeah. If you told Steve Saka keep it under a minute, he'd be like, "Go interview someone else." It's move it along, sir. I like that Matt had a real classy. Obviously with being part of that group now, because last year, I don't know if you had to take a cigar from his glory hole that he had set up last year. So there's no glory hole this year. So I'm sure, STG was like, "Hey, let's fancy this thing up a little bit." So
what's this in the fine print?
Glory
hole? Okay.
No. And then say Alec Bradley. I'm glad. I love that you talked with Bradley for a moment. So I'm glad to see him. He was there. I didn't know if him and his brother would both be there, or if it was just going to be him, or who was going to be there.
I saw he was there, and Jonathan Lipson was there.
Oh, was Jonathan there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So who had the who had the best booth? Who do you think had the best booth?
The booth that, again, and they won the award for best large booth. But I really like. There's two booths that stood out. The Law Award booth, because it was like if you visited or if you've gone to the PCA trade show in the past and you've seen like IPSPR years, like some of the bigger booths back then, one of the things that over the years, like a lot of the booths have kind of shrunk down a little bit. But Law Award was like a huge, grand booth. They spent like all this time. So you go there and you feel like you're in the glory days of the IPSPR show or maybe even RTDA. And it was just nice to see like nice display cabinets. It was just like a nice vibe in there, the coffee, area station. And then you walk outside the booth and you go around the back wall of the booth. And it was like a history of Law Award. It was like, just like if you visit their factory in the Dominican Republic, it was like that replicated on the back of the booth, all perfectly lit. So you could see it, it was just a great presentation. And the other booth that really stood out to me was Jeremy's from Wildfire, because he had a camper on the show floor and like a picnic table and, the Wildfire kind of backdrop. And I remember I was like, oh, you want it? I was like, I kept passing by because he was super busy most of the show. And I was like, hey, you want to do a quick video? And he was like, oh yeah. It's like, oh wait, come into the camper and I'll let you into the VIP area. Like, nope, not everyone gets to come back here. And he he has like a tiny little display case. He moves that down. He's like, step on up. And it's like, you step into the camper and it's just like, you're like, oh, it's like, cigar boxes here, a bear, a big stuffed bear kind of sitting there and stuff. You're just like looking around like, oh yeah, sure, cool. Like, awesome. And, and people are walking by like, oh, like that person's like actually in the camper. And like, so for people who haven't seen it, if you go to the PCA's Instagram channel, you get to see that interview and you get to see what the inside of the booth looks like. And those two booths to me kind of really stood out as being the most memorable.
Yeah, I actually sent him a trophy last year because for best booth, and it was actually like an old '80s karate trophy, and on the plaque it says, kicking ass at PCA 2022, and it was just a guy doing karate on this trophy because I knew that was Jeremy. Like Jeremy would love a trophy, like a karate guy trophy, But yeah, he had a fantastic one last year.
Yeah, and so he won for best small booth this year. So
I saw that.
When we were passing, it was like it was the last day of the show, so it's a half day, and we were passing, trying to go to all those booths that won and give them the awards. And he was actually in the camper, so he like pokes his head out. Yes, can I help you? Like yeah, we have something for you. And he's like, oh, okay. He pops back in and he like steps out, and then we're like, best booth. He's like, yeah. I was like, yeah. So it was like, it was a fun moment.
I could have seen him like you knocked on the door and he would just be like, get off my property, and then just go back inside.
Shows up with a bathrobe.
Yeah, just showed up in the bathrobe, like, oh crap, I gotta get dressed. Hold on a second, I'll come out. But that's Jeremy though, man. What a fantastic dude. Absolutely hilarious. So did you have a space on the floor, to where I know I read Half Wheel and I didn't know that he said they had like a little space where they'd come and charge batteries and create content. Mm-hmm. Is that, did you have something like that, as well, to where you could go and just relax for a second?
We had like what we call media pods on the floor this year. So it was like a little area, and it was like not a big space, but it was like enough room where a table was in there and you could recharge and stuff like that. So for me though, I was so busy that I only made it back there basically like the show floor closed at like 6:00 every day. And I made it back there like at 5:00 just to kind of like charge up for like a few minutes before getting the last few kind of meetings and videos in for the day.
Yeah, last year I was on crutches last year because of my knee injury. So I remember like the tail end of the day, I saw this beautiful couch and it was in the Sinistro, and James like, bro, come and sit down, and it's like, I'm like, oh, the greatest couch ever, just I don't, people don't realize how much you walk, You know,
Yeah.
it is an insane. I was there for one day. You know, I was there for a full day, open to close, and I didn't see anything. No, I mean, I saw 5% of all the booths. I had people reaching out, "Hey, why didn't you come see me?" I go, I never saw you. Like, where were you?
I got the same thing, and it was like the last day of like the last hour this year when the show was getting ready to close. PCA decided to do something a little different. We passed out beer and snacks and other drinks to anyone who was still at the show. So we were going around with beer carts and stuff like that. And then, like, as we were going around, I was like, that person's booth was there the whole time. And I never saw them like all the days of the show. And I feel like I've been over here like 50 times. And it was so many people. I was like, oh man, I was like, that sucks. I didn't see that, you know, beforehand. But it's one of those things where it's like, you look at the show floor and you go, oh, no big deal when you first like enter it. But trying to walk it and talk to everyone, it's just impossible to get to everyone.
Yeah, and I think their maps could be better. You know, like I said, I don't know if they were like this year, but like last year, like the map was not good. Like there were,
yeah, it was like things
I wanted to see, and I'm like, I don't get this map. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I wear glasses usually, and even with my glasses on, I was like, "What? Where's this person's?" I was like, "Where's this person's booth?" It was like in the directory. It was like everything was like microscopic.
Yeah.
And then the numbers to me didn't make sense, and I was just like, "Wait, so this number's here, and yet this number right here is like a completely different number." So I was like, what's the correlation here?" So even I was like being challenged. I was like, I just gonna have to walk the show floor. I was like, I'll have to find this person on my own.
That's it. You know, I see like, okay, this Alec Bradley is in booth like 497, you know, but then a friend of mine who was in a booth like right across the aisle, he was like 1702. And I'm like, I don't, what are those numbers? What do those numbers mean? I don't know. It's like, you need to get a postman to draw this map next year, you know? So, but yeah, maybe that'll be on the list, a new map. One thing that so for the previous 2 years, not this year, I didn't hear anything about it this year, was the influencers, like being like a lot of them and then being like kind of annoying. Did you experience any of that this year? I talked to a couple media guys and they said they really didn't run into anything this year. Did you guys experience any of that?
I didn't run into too many. I did see a few that I was like, okay, they're not a retailer. They're not really media, but they're here. So it was like one of those things where it's just because I spend so much time on Instagram, I did recognize a few people and I was like, how did they get here? You know, but it was only like one or two times where I was like unfamiliar with someone and I was like trying to look at their badge like an old person, like, who are you? And, you know, and I was like, it says retailer on there, but they're doing an interview and I'm sitting here waiting, you know, to get this interview done so I can like move to somebody else's booth. And I'm, you know, and they're like, oh, it'll only be a minute or so. And it was like, you know, it was a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes with some of these people. And I was like, who is this person? I've never seen them before. So it was a little bit of that, but we're trying to work out. That's one of the things, again, today, like when we had our kind of post-show debriefing that, you know, we did talk about, you know, the making sure we kind of manage that in a better way so that I'm glad that people didn't find it that was a problem this year, but make sure it doesn't become a problem as it was in past years.
Yeah, you know, I had told Jessica, like, I had never seen this many consumers at the show, you know, and because she's like, well, who? And I pull up pictures. This guy. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you know they're not with? No, they're not. They're consumers, and they got in the show, you know. And I go, whatever, you know, like not my show, you know. But I'm like, that's kind of, you know, not what the show is about. It's not about consumers, you know. And
and I was just gonna say sometimes retailers, I guess they feel like they're doing their best customers sometimes a favor by letting them like, hey, you know, I have an extra badge. I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna be working, but you know, you can go around the show floor and maybe pick up a few, you know, cigars or do whatever or meet some people, and it's not that kind of event. So again, that's something that we have to kind of work out on how to better manage that. And this is so hard because I think a lot of people think PCA is a big organization with all these people, and it's like 7 of us.
Yeah.
So it's 7 of us, and then in a trade show, you have like 2 people who are dedicated to, booth sales, so getting booth sales for next year. You had 1 person who was like, the overall kind of trade show manager who was running around, making sure everything was, taken care of, staying. So that's, you have the government affairs people who are running the government, the state Premium Cigar Association meetings and having meetings with them. So, and you have me running around doing content. So there's not a lot of people here to sit here and police and go, oh, I know that person from, social media. Like, they're not really supposed to be here. And like, how do you handle that without making a big scene? It's a task that it's just going to take some work to figure out how to better manage that for everyone, because it does disrupt kind of business for the manufacturer and also for, the media who is there, who knows how to politely wait and, get the interviews done and do things the right way.
Yeah, because I know there was an issue last year because I was only there for the one day. So I had flown home and another member of the media reached out to me basically like, hey, kind of dick move, giving your badge just to a consumer, when you left. And then I took a picture of my badge. It was in my office here. And I go, no, it's my badge. He showed me a picture of someone that went up and then got a badge that said Kevin from Cigar Prop. And I'm like, how did this happen? So traced it back, posted a picture online, and it was a consumer at a local lounge here in Florida. So knew his name and everything else. And I'd sent that to the PCA, and I'm like, hey, this, just in case this gets back, that wasn't me. I didn't give my badge out. I don't know how this guy was able to go to wherever and get another badge with my name on it. But this was a consumer, and like he is attached to this lounge, and I never did hear back, but yeah, what's that?
Who was it?
I'd have to, I'll have to tell you after. But yeah, after I posted a picture, a few people commented, and a friend of ours came like, hey, I know that guy. He comes to my lounge. This is, I'm like, yeah, kind of a, dick move, going up and just getting. So obviously, I mean, if he follows me on social media, he knew I was only there for one day.
Right.
Like, hey, I'll go up and get a badge from. But then that guy doesn't know. I mean, he screws up. That's Cigar Prop. This guy must be with Cigar Prop, and makes me look bad. So,
I don't think he cared about that.
Yeah, he definitely did not care about that. Is there any talk? Because I know that's the big thing with media. Like the last couple years, it's expensive for us to go to the PCA. TPE. They reached out to me this year. I didn't even reach out to them. Like, hey, if you want to come, it's free. Your media, we'll get you free. We'll get you like one night, free hotel, or we'll get you, is there any type of talk about getting, like legitimate media, a little bit more access at a better price, maybe free?
Yeah, we are actually working on reviewing that. So what I think a lot of people don't understand about PCA too is there's lots of committees and boards. So we have a trade show committee that's with some of our top retail partners and some of the board members. So one of the things that we are going to be discussing is this whole media thing and how to maybe make it a little bit better membership for people. So I can't say much right now, but hopefully by the 2024 show, which is pretty soon, it's just a couple of months away, like less than a year.
Yeah.
This go around, there will be something announced for the media. Like I said, that will make it a little bit better, and it will streamline the whole process. Hopefully, if it works out as we've discussed it.
Yeah, because it's I mean, you've been as a member of media of another organization. It can get expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can be thousands of dollars. Especially when you got to buy your ticket. Into basically your ticket into the event, which a lot of people don't know. I mean, it's $400. And that gets me that weekend. As a member of the media, it doesn't get me anything else like it does get the consumers that everybody, or not the consumers, the brick and mortars, the manufacturers. They get a lot more out of their their ticket than a member of the media does. So So that's exciting. And then seeing how you know, because I know Coop has talked about this before. How do you determine who's legitimate media and who just has an Instagram following with 500 people?
Yeah, that's all manual, and I don't know if PCA has had the manpower to really sit down, because what they don't realize too is, you know, we're tracking people who are signing up for the show, obviously going on, you know, whenever registration opens, like we're tracking that kind of information. And it's like, it goes along like, oh, we're at a pretty good steady rate. And then if things go correctly, which they did this year, and everyone starts saying, yeah, I'm going to the show this year, then everybody's like, then other people who have not yet renewed their membership say, I'm going to go to the show then too. So they start renewing their membership. So you would think everyone will have a membership already renewed. And yet it's like, here we are, like the show is, you know, was July, you know, basically the after the 4th of July. Even at the airport, I was sitting there with Lisa Siegler, who does the membership, and she was like, we're still getting applications in, and we have to go in manually and look at the applications and make sure, like, if you're a retailer, like you have the proper license and all this other stuff to make sure you're legit and like everything. So it's all a manual thing. So like when you talk about the media, I mean, the big thing is like the PCA is all about the retailer. So to sit there and go through media, it's like you're sitting there asking yourself, like, is this person, like Coop says, is this an influencer? Is this a media person? Like, how do we make that call? So that will probably come down on me a little bit, and I'm sure I'll make some people mad, but you know, I think I know a lot of people, you know, who I would say are really good media people, and then I know people who are really good influencers, and we're gonna have to kind of decide, you know, obviously who gets that designation as media. And to me, media are people who do like what you do are right now, which is, you know, sit down doing the podcasting, you're making stories, you're telling you're sharing the news of the industry. It's not just taking a picture and using your looks to get the nice cigars and stuff like that. Like, that's not what we're going after, you know, and that's not it's not good for you to come to the show and do that, because you're kind of disrupting, again, the whole business that needs to actually take place there.
It's not what we're going after too when you look like this.
Yeah, exactly. and you can say it, boobs. You know, you can say boobs. You know, so it is.
Well, it's not just boobs anymore. Sometimes it's I've seen it start going into, like, you know, if a male looks super attractive, like, you know, he'll reverse the whole script and he'll do the same thing, and it's like you start to see it like I say, play both ways now. So you can't just say boobs anymore.
Yeah, I know. I've done that. I hear
yeah.
I'll
do that. Some I mean, we all know that. You know, I have no problem, you know, throwing on my Speedo like on the 4th of July and just taking a good photo. And then every now and then I get the comment from one of a lady influencer or someone online. Oh, you know, you're like that. We do that, and then we get lambasted for being half naked, but you do that, and everybody thinks it's funny. I'm like, well, I do that 1 out of every 1,000 photos, you know. So
I'm doing it to be funny.
Yeah, I was doing it to be funny. You know, I wasn't doing it every single photo, you know. So, but whatever.
That'd be a tough one.
What about any of the after events, after parties? Were you able to attend any, or was you just like wiped? I can't even imagine your job. You know, just it's crazy.
Actually, I didn't. So we had it was called PCA After Dark, for those of you who don't know, which we teamed up with a company called Fuse. I think Fuse Entertainment, or it might just be Fuse. They helped us put on different events around Vegas. The first event was actually at the Venetian. I was at the Oak Room, and I was not able to attend that one, but it was probably like, I've heard the post report, that was the most well-attended PCA After Dark event, because it was like right there at the hotel, so people didn't have to go that far.
Yeah.
And it was like really good. There was one at the Mandalay Bay that it was okay, but it wasn't as good as the Oak Room, because obviously, if you know where the Venetian is and you know where Mandalay Bay is, that was a bit of a trek. So you had to basically take a taxi. So it did not perform as well, but it still did pretty, you know, it was decently, and people came out and were networking, and they brought their, you know, retailers just kind of teamed up and brought their friends there and came to those. Now, the non-networking ones that were just like PCA after dark, like let's go to the club kind of thing, those I feel like we're going to have to rethink. I kind of knew, I felt going into it, I was like, I don't know many retailers who want to go to, these like Jewel and all these like really kind of like clubby places and stuff. Cause like the first thing I've heard most of the complaints, just in general is like, we don't want to be anywhere where we can't hear a conversation happening. We want to go somewhere where we can smoke. And that's why you see so many people usually gathering around the bar area. Or going to, the different lounges in Vegas, like the Casa de Monte Cristo, that lounge and the 8 lounge now at Resorts World.
Great lounge.
So, yeah, so those kind of after dark events obviously have to be rethought out next year, but I think we're going to kind of double down on the more of the networking events and try to make it closer to like the host hotel, which next year will be Resorts World, will be like the main kind of hotel where everything is at.
Yeah, that's why I was last year. I was like, I didn't want to leave the resort. I didn't want to leave, I just wanted to, especially with me being on crutches, but especially after walking around all day. And it's just like, hey, we're meeting down the street for dinner. It's walking distance. I don't want to go. Like,
Yeah.
I just walked, 50 miles today. I'm like, I don't want to walk anywhere else.
And plus, when it's like 109 degrees outside, you're like, oh yeah, like you feel like I was watching the news today and somebody was saying like they were out in that area and they're like, oh, it feels like you're on fire. It's like it literally does. Like you have to you feel like you're burning up, like walking out of the Venetian. You're like, what am I doing? And it's not pleasant. So.
Oh yeah, I had to walk next door to like the CVS, last year because I had to I left my charging brick at home. And it was like you walked outside and it's just like, I'm from Florida. I mean, we got a very moist heat out here, but you walked outside, it's like, what is going on here? What is the people live here all the time? I don't understand. It was brutal. But yeah, I like staying inside, with the air conditioning. And like you said, I want to be able to have a conversation, just sit down somewhere and just chat and be able to hear the people, not parties where, loud DJs. And I don't know, I guess I'm getting old. It's like that meme where you hand the DJ $20 and be like, hey, can you turn it down just a scooch? Like I'm at that age now. Like, let's just tone this down a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like when I go to the clubs like that, I feel like Little John because I'm always like, huh? Like, okay,
yeah.
like you're just
what?
like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what you're going like the whole time. And like you get out of there, you're like, I have no idea what I just said yeah to. So I hope it wasn't anything crazy or inappropriate or whatever. Like I have no idea. So for me, it's like, everybody's like, are you gonna go to that? I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm not gonna go. But there were so many different things, like especially the weekend too. Most people were at the trade show. I mean, like a bulk of people were there that weekend. So I think lots of the manufacturers do. So you had lots of manufacturers that were throwing their own events and parties. Mm-hmm. I was able, that Saturday night, I went to Nestor Miranda's 80th birthday party at Resorts World at the Gatsby. And I was there until, like 11 o'clock, I think. It was like 11 o'clock or so. It wasn't that late, but that was like my outing for that day. And it was enough.
That was late enough. That was late enough,
Yeah.
It was I was in bed bright, early, early my day when I was there. But yeah, Espinoza had an event, that he put out to all the media people. That seemed like a fun event. I'd like to have attended that one. So, but speaking of fun, what do you do for fun? What is in North Carolina? What do you do?
There's not a lot to do in North Carolina. I mean, I'm sure that other people might answer that question differently, but I usually just hang out here. So I keep myself pretty entertained here. So, like I said, we talked about earlier. So you can see the PS5 in the background. There's a Switch over there. So lately I've been doing a Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. A lot of that. I spend a lot of money on vinyl records. So usually at night, I'm just kind of like old lady scrolling through things like ooh, I don't have that vinyl record. I'm gonna buy it and spend it and stuff like that. So it's mainly me just adding basically to my vinyl collection. And then I also like to read, and so I usually spend like like the last hour of the day reading something. So I stay pretty busy here, but that's like those are my activities. I don't. If you know anything about North Carolina and Durham, especially, like it's not exactly like it's safe, but it's not like somewhere where you like I'm gonna like go hang out outside and stuff like that. You kind of like at a certain time you do a self-imposed curfew if you just want to keep yourself safe. So when it gets dark, I'm like usually in place here or pretty close by, so I can like run inside real quick so I don't get shot up.
So what are you reading? What's your pleasure?
So right now I'm reading Story Brand. So it is as if I'm like promoting my own book. Building a story.
We're gonna screenshot this later. Check out
Building
Story
a story
Brand.
brand. Building a Story Brand is the book I'm reading right now, which is a pretty interesting book about the basic structure of a story and how, as a company, most companies, their first impulse is to like when they're writing a press release or they're writing any type of content, if they don't think about it, they think we're going to hype ourselves up. So we're going to put ourselves, we're the hero. Like we saved the day, like with our product or whatever, or our service. And you should actually position yourself as the guide and your customer is the hero. So it's a completely kind of different way of thinking. Just, if you position yourself as the guide, then, you talk about things completely differently than you would normally. So instead of hyping yourself up, you're saying, I provide a service. This is how this service can help you. So you're Yoda and your customer is the Luke Skywalker, and you're just giving them the tools to be successful to solve their own problems. So that's like a roundabout way of describing it.
Kevin, Luke Skywalker is the star of Star Wars, and Yoda is the master.
Luke Skywalker is lead singer of a rapper of Two Live Crew. FYI, Luke Skywalker is my boy. I mean, that's all I listened to growing up. Luke Skywalker and Two Live Crew, baby. Oh. I still have every CD. I love me some Luke Skywalker. Nowadays you see a lot of which I've used it, AI, to generate a little bit of content. You just gotta go back in there and edit it sometimes. Someone sent me an article they wrote, and I'm like, hey, did AI write this? And like, yeah, how did you know? And I go, yeah, you got the cigar company name wrong. Yeah, it's not the name of the cigar company. It's not the Nick Melillo Cigar Company. It's called Foundation. I'm like, you should tell that to AI.
AI does not do a good job with cigar content. I know people who have tried it, and I tell them don't do it. Like, don't trust it. Like I told AI, I was like, hey, I want you to give me, go through and give me every Rocky Patel brand there is, and I want it in this format. And it did something, but it was totally like all wrong. Like I was like, this makes no sense. And you even go to the website. And I even said, here's the website to pull information from. And it was all over the place. I was like, I have no idea what that is. And I've heard of other companies trying to use AI to like write their marketing copy. And again, like you said, it's not a good result. So no.
I'll for a couple of my product descriptions, I'll give it like 125, 150 words. I'll do it, and I'm like, just can you clean this up? And it's always done a really good job of clean. But I've wrote the majority of it. I'm like, just fix like the punctuation. Sometimes it adds some cool stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm good with that. But I did ask AI, which I sent it to Lars Tetens, is to write me a song about cigars, and it wrote an amazing song. Like it was so good. I'm like, oh my god! I sent it to Lars. I'm like, can you please record this cigar song and just you gotta put it online. But it did a good job writing a cigar song. I did ask it to write me a cigar poem, as well, but it told me that since it doesn't smoke cigars and tobacco is bad for you, that it would not write me a poem promoting
song, Kevin.
Promoting cigars. So then I asked it to write me a song, but a song was okay.
Send me the song.
Okay, I thought I sent you the song.
No, not that I know of. I know the Lars three chords.
Okay,
but now you could get AI to sing it for you, so you could say,
can you?
You can. There's certain AI services out there that can sing the songs that you write for it. So the people are going through and they're saying like, I want you to take Britney Spears' voice and sing this Prince song, and it will sing it, and you can't tell the difference. And they're doing it for other artists too. They're like, Billy Joel singing, Sir Mix-a-Lot, I like big butts, and it'll do it, and it will completely, or say, take Elvis and sing, this Cardi B song and make it in the style, and it could completely mimic his voice. I listened to it. It was like, I'm telling you, it's like it's gonna change the music industry.
Don't do it, Kevin.
The music.
Oh my God!
Don't do it. It's the evil. AI is evil.
I want to hear Morgan Freeman sing WAP. That's what I want to hear is Morgan Freeman singing WAP. So yeah,
I've not been my voice to singing such a song.
Yeah, that's it. So oh my God, that'd be. I didn't know that was a thing. So a rabbit hole that I'll go down. So I have one last question for you, and then I will let Kerr see if he's had any. So I asked, like I said, members of the media or even cigar manufacturers, do your friends and family know how famous you are? Like, do they have any idea?
I don't feel like I'm not at all famous. So maybe in a trade show experience, like having people actually know who you are, because sometimes I usually go with people, I'm like, I know they don't know who I am, and they like completely do. Or sometimes, so it's really strange. Like there were a couple of people at the trade show. Like I was like, oh, like there was one person, I won't say who it was, but there was like one person, like I was at the opening party and they were like, oh, like, hi, I'm so-and-so. And I was like, I know, because you were on my podcast.
Oh, no.
and they were like, oh, yeah, I remember now. I was like, yeah, but you did before. So it was that kind of moment. And then there's other people where I'm like, there's no way they're going to know who I am. And they're like, oh my gosh, like Antoine. And I'm like, wow, you know my name, and we had like a whole conversation. So they do. So yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if people know who I don't feel like I'm at all famous. It's just that people seem to know me from Deep Cut. So I'm always surprised when people actually say that they watch Deep Cuts. I'm like, oh, you do? Like where? Like where do you see it? Like what did you like about it? So that's always interesting to me, because I always do get people saying, oh, I watched it. And I'm like, you did? Like I never feel like people actually watch it, because it's like StreamYard, like we're using StreamYard. It's split between so many channels that I look at the small number. I'm like, oh, nobody watched it, but that's okay. It's my own private conversation with the person. And then people are like, oh, like that's like a really good, like somebody was like, oh, I watched the Nestor Miranda interview you did right before PCA, and like him talking about the hotel. And I was like, wow, you watched it. Like that's awesome. That's cool. So
yeah, I get the same way. I remember years ago, I had seen Pete Johnson at an event. And like it'd been maybe 2 years since I had seen Pete, and we kind of interacted online. And it was like when he said my name, like, oh my God, Pete Johnson knows my government name, So not just Cigar Prop. So yeah, it's it gets weird sometimes, But yeah, so yeah, it's you're famous, so it's we'll throw it out there, But like Steve Saka said, being cigar famous really isn't being famous.
Yeah, and that's the thing you have to keep in mind with the industry, because like sometimes you get nervous about approaching certain people, and then you're like, but if I was outside the cigar industry, this person would just be a normal person. Like if they came up to me and told me that they have a cigar brand and I didn't smoke cigars, I'll just be like, okay, like what's that supposed to mean? Like I wouldn't get it. So
yeah. My daughter just texted Jessica the other day. and like, hey, don't tell Dad I asked this, but someone at work wanted me to ask me what my dad does for a living, and I don't know, I didn't know what to tell him. I go, damn it, tell her I'm an influencer, you know, and make me look big. You know, influencers are the thing nowadays. You know, she's young, people will respect that. So, but yeah. Kerr, any final thoughts? I can't. It's been it's one of those shows. 2 hours already. I can't believe it's been
went by quickly.
You know, went by quick.
Great information. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I can't wait for next year. And I like Kevin. I've been watching the videos and checking out Instagram, and it's a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like before we go, I want to flip the script because like when I'm on Deep Cuts, I like to end the show with like 2 questions for people to usually ask. So I was wondering, like, could I ask you those questions to see how you would respond to those questions? And so the first of those questions is, do either of you have a philosophy that you live by?
Kerr, you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Kevin. You never met a question you didn't like. Come on.
Yeah. So it's weird because I'm not religious. People know that I'm atheist. So, but the philosophy I live by is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I live by that. Just be a good person. Good things will happen to you.
Yeah, that's kind of my philosophy too. Believe it or not, I mean, oddly enough, it is just treat others the way that you want to be treated.
And then the last question I usually ask before I close out my show is, I want you to finish the sentence. So Kevin is.
Yeah, I'm. The first word is amazing. Kevin is amazing. That was the first word that thought that, but that's kind of the narcissist in me. Kevin is amazing. But Kevin is a family man, you know, but I'm going to go with my first thought. Kevin is amazing. I'm just doing that.
It's a big shift from amazing to family man.
Yeah, it is. Kevin is amazing. As like one of them Rorschach tests. First thing you see. So it is. And
how about for you, Kerr?
Yeah, I agree. Kevin is amazing. No, I'm just a simple kind of guy.
Okay.
Wasn't there a song, "Simple Kind of Guy"? How'd that go?
Simple man.
A simple man.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Not very complicated, just straightforward.
Simple man. I'm gonna throw that back at you, Antoine. Antoine is.
I don't know. I would say Antoine is shy. So doing videos and stuff is usually like a big challenge for me, which people can't tell. But people always want me to do like what I did today, which is like at the end of my show, I always get like, well, you didn't say anything on the show. I was like, but it's not for me to talk. I was like, it's for the guests. So I tell people, I was like, if I'm on somebody else's thing, I'll do, you know, plenty of talking. But like on mine, I just sit there the whole time and like I said, we have a good conversation and I let them have the floor. And at the end of the show, I do the little Jimmy Kimmel, which is like, "Ooh, sorry, Matt Damon, we're running out of time." Like we're at the end of our hour together, and that's that. So yeah.
But those are really the best shows, you know, because there are shows out there where you get the host that, you know, that does talk a lot, and then they hype up the manufacturers like, "Oh my God, your cigar is my favorite. I smoke it all the time." And then the next week you hear the same thing. "Oh my God, your cigars are amazing. I smoke them all the time." And, you know, but yeah, so I like yours. Just let the you know, person you're interviewing do all the talking, and it always ends up being a great show.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely.
So Antoine, thank you so much, man.
Thank you for
having me on.
All right. We'll definitely see you at PCA next year.
Cool. So it's in March. So people who are out there who are doing their little calendars, March is PCA next year, so we will not be doing a summer show for the foreseeable future. So.
All right. And then next or is it next year? It's in New Orleans, or the following year?
The following year. So next year, so 2024 Vegas, but we're going to be at the convention center in Resorts World, and then the next year after that, New Orleans.
Okay, and then what about after that? Have they decided yet, or is that?
They have not decided yet.
Okay, so I'm not going to renew my membership yet. So hoping for that free pass for media next year. So,
Yeah.
all right. You have a good night, man.
Take care,
Thank you.
Antoine.
Thank you. All right, everybody, start typing in the word cigar for our giveaway, and then in the meantime, we'll hear a word from our sponsor, Corona Cigar.
So, Kevin, you're talking about AI
Taking
singing.
giveaway presented by Amendola. What?
No, you were frozen. So I started talking, and it was like,
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
Let me switch
Go ahead.
cameras. Here, time for the Tapping Ash and Taking Names giveaway presented by Amendola Family Cigars.
So I was. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
No, I was saying you wanted the AI singing the song,
Yeah.
and Morgan Freeman doing. I like Big Butts.
Yeah.
I think that would be a good one.
Yeah. I'm gonna send you that song though, since
Please
Lars
do.
since Lars isn't going to record it.
Come on, Lars. What are you doing?
I know. I'm gonna send it to you. Tonight's winner is going to get the July 2023 Premium Cigar of the Month Club shipment from Corona Cigar. It's got a Cordoba and Morales Platino, a Adventura, the Royal Return King's Gold, which Jessica instantly stole from me and smoked right away. The God of Fire Angelinos, I told her she could not have that one. I was excited to smoke that. The La Palina 125th Años and the La Aurora Preferidos Maduro. If anybody knows Sammy Phillips from La Palina, it's been 2 years now. I've been trying to get Sammy on this show. So reach out to Sammy Phillips at lapalino.com and tell them to, hey, you need to get Sammy on the show. Morgan Freeman should do Oak Island next season. Yeah.
I'm digging, and I still find nothing.
Yeah. So let's go ahead.
Chance of finding that $10 under that rock by the cornfield.
All right, Kerr, let me know when you see this up on your screen.
I see it up on your screen.
All right, start collecting comments. Got 10. All right, let's see. Brian Woodward. No, Ben Irwin.
Irwin.
Stop there. Ben Irwin. Send me an email, kevin@cigarprop.com. We'll get you your prize pack out.
Nice.
And like we said at the beginning of the show, this is our last show before we go on. We're going on summer break. We'll be in a whole new studio. If you've been following me on YouTube and all the social medias, you'll see all the progress we've done on that. We're super excited to be broadcasting from the Drew Estate Experience Acid Lounge and studios when we come back. So it's going to be at least a month before we come back, maybe 6 weeks. So we'll see how it goes. And then we'll see everybody. Then it's going to be a great new studio. Make sure.
Go ahead.
No. I said make sure you're following Cigar Prop producer Jessica, Kerr Viajante of Stogie Road Cigars on all the social medias. Antoine Reid, our guest, Deep Cut Live, all of his social medias, his email is in the video description below, the podcast description if you're listening to this. Also the show notes. In the show notes are the social media links for all of our partners. So once again, thank you to JC Newman Cigars, CigarMedics, Amendola Cigars. We are the muscle. Jake Wyatt Cigars, Illusione Cigars, Deep in Flavor, Deep in Your Mind, K by Karen Berger Cigars, Corona Cigar, and of course, Drew Estate and Experience Acid. Kerr?
So this being your last show at your studio, and you've been in your studio for how long?
We've been here for over 2 years now. 3 years we've been doing shows.
Close 3 years. What's your outside of interviews, because that doesn't count, what's your best moment in that studio?
The best moment in the studio.
With clothing on.
Yeah, with clothing on.
Yeah.
I'm a germaphobe, so there's no clothing off in the well, except for that one Matt Booth room 101 photo. Yeah, it was during COVID. So and it was just hanging out in the studio, like we talked about earlier. There was so many great herfs, meeting so many great people, so many great manufacturers, so many just regular cigar smokers, just hanging out, smoking cigars, just talking, because at the end of the day, we're all the same, just from Steve Saka to, Alec and Bradley Rubin and Nick Melillo and everybody, you find out like they're just regular people. They go to the grocery store, and they bitch about taxes and bitch about the price of gas, and those were some of my best moments when you just realize that these people, even though we consider them famous, we put them on this pedestal. They want to know as much about us and our personal lives as we want to know about them and the business.
Yeah.
It's been fun. It's just been a wild ride. And I never thought all those years ago, sitting in my garage, doing videos, people complaining because they can hear the dryer going off in the background. I was like, Kevin, you got to make sure Jessica turns the dryer off when you do a video. I never thought that one day I would have a cigar lounge, like attached to my house.
Right.
Like a cigar lounge.
That's fantastic. So what's your least favorite moment or memory in that lounge that you will not be at anymore? In your studio, rather?
It's the grind. It's the grind. It's, we don't produce as much content as we used to, especially since YouTube, all the social medias, they started cracking down on the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. For me, that was kind of a godsend. It's like, because before, it's like I felt like I had to produce all of this content all of the time. We were uploading 5 videos a week, 7 videos a week, doing reviews, and it was too much. It was a hassle producing all that content, and so yeah, that was those are the moments that I didn't like, just because you're doing content for the sake of just doing content for numbers, and I feel like we've gotten to the point in our careers, in our business and as members of the media, that I don't have to produce that content anymore.
Right.
Like, people just they just follow us.
Good. Well, I'm happy and excited about the new lounge, but you did build the empire in that studio of yours. So, leave a little memento up there, even after Jessica turns it into a walk-in closet or something, to mark all of the memories and all the great things that happened in that studio. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And then we've already started disassembling some of the studio, and the memories are the yellow stains on the walls and the ceiling. So
well,
she'll paint over, and this will be a walk-in closet. So in the future. So yeah, this will. But yeah, I've got to leave like a challenge coin. I got to leave.
You got to get a plaque. Here's what you need. Here's what you got to do. Get a plaque, and then fucking bolt it somewhere where she can't take it out.
Yeah.
And then on this spot, Kevin was awesome.
I love it. So thank you.
Just bolt it into the ground or wherever.
Yeah, and thank you, Kerr. I mean, it's we've come a long way. I think the show is the best it's ever has been, and you're you have a lot to do with that. I know Jessica has said several times, and other people like, hey, Kerr doesn't talk a whole lot, but Kerr, for people that listen, Kerr does more than I think anybody realizes. He's the best co-host. Sometimes a co-host isn't somebody that talks all the time.
You shouldn't.
It's someone that supports, that listens, that throws in a comment or a question when I forget it. So this isn't, and I've said that in our private conversations before, this no longer is just my show. This isn't mine and Jessica's show. This is your show every bit as much as it is mine. And
I appreciate that.
I'm honored, and that you continue want to do this, and hopefully that'll continue for as far as we'll take this thing.
No, I appreciate that. I just wanted to say with doing my show, and doing them with co-hosts and doing it for a long time, I truly am and was excited to join you. And a lot of people don't get this because everybody wants to be a fucking star. Everyone wants to fucking talk. Everyone wants to be fucking heard. And at the end of the day, Antoine hit the nail on the head. If you're an interviewer, you ask great questions, you ask insightful questions, and the person who is the star of the show is the guest. And if you have a co-host, your job isn't to talk more, it's to listen. Like you said, it's to ask other questions, it's to pick up on some things that may be missed, maybe add a little bit of humor here and there. But I love this position because I know my role. And there's a lot of folks who have a hard time because they want to be the star and they want to be the person who's heard. And to be a good co-host, you just got to be a support. You look at all the co-hosts that are on all these talk shows that, they're not sitting there expecting the spotlight to be on them. So you are the best interviewer, in my opinion. You're well, you're very prepared. You make sure that you do all the research on your guests, and I'm impressed with it. I learned a lot, from just being the host, sitting here and listening and learning. So I'm looking forward to the second half of the year. And if you anybody, like you said, doing this isn't easy. It's fun. You have to have a passion for it. It's not a fucking hobby. It's something where you really do have to have a passion for it. You got to be prepared. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of behind the scenes. You just can't flip on a camera and expect to get the followers and the viewers that you have just by flipping on a camera and then uploading it on the Facebook or the YouTube. So I'm proud of all that you've done and all that you've accomplished and how far you've come. And I'm looking forward to the lounge.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. We'll see you in about a month or so.
See you.